Sex and the City 2, you might have seen the posters. You might be wondering whether Mark's going to like it. Just a reminder, as we did mention earlier to Gabby, you did say when you went to see the first one...
So don't go and see the first one, because if you do, you'll only encourage them to make another one. And... well, obviously they did, but loads of people. And this will be number one next week. And I should say right at the beginning of this, you're not going to get a rant about this, because it's one of those things like, it's the parental thing about I'm not angry. I'm disappointed. I mean, my expectations were low, and I have to say they were met. It's ghastly. And I've spent quite a lot of time in the last week trying to figure out exactly what it is that is so ghastly and putrid and vomit-inducing about Sex and the City 2. So essentially, as I said, if you went to see the first one, this is kind of your fault. It's about 146 minutes long, which is about the same length as 2001. And in 2001, as I've said before, Stanley Kubrick goes from the birth of mankind to the birth of a new species and connection with the extraterrestrials. And in Sex and the City 2, it goes from a group of totally consumerist, obsessed caricatures who end up as a group of totally consumer-obsessed caricatures. Anyway, the plot, it starts with a big gay wedding, okay? And there is a big gay wedding, which they keep referring to as a gay wedding, so we mustn't call it a gay wedding, but it's so gay that apparently when this much gay energy is in the room, these are lines from the film, incidentally, Liza Minnelli will manifest. And so Liza Minnelli comes on and officiates at the wedding. And it's the kind of gag that you could only make if basically, it's like gay men making jokes about gay men. I mean, to be honest with you, the whole thing about Sex and the City is it appears that it's what's the phrase? It's jumped the shark. It's gone from being about a group of women, which I'm reliably informed that the television series was, to basically being about a group of men in drag. That is what it is, and it sort of tells you this at the very beginning when they have the big gay wedding, which is an in joke. Which, if anybody else was making it, you go, I'm sorry, this is stereotypical and just not funny and crass. And would you stop doing it? So anyway, Liza Minnelli turns up because everything's so gay. Fine, this is the beginning of the film. Then we have some stuff meeting the characters again, and then one of them gets offered a first-class ticket to Abu Dhabi and says, I'm going to take all my girlfriends with me. So they go on tour. And this, of course, is a plot device which is, known from all movies that based on television series that run out of steam. The example that I was going to use, although somebody writing in has already mentioned it, is not Carry On Up the Khyber, which a lot of other people have mentioned, but is, in fact, Are You Being Served, a movie in which they go to the Costa Blanca, and it's all the Mrs. Slocum, ooh, I'm wearing, all that stuff. It is essentially that
was
film.
Danny Dyer for a moment.
Yeah, it was. I think, actually, it's the same actor plays both roles. So that is what you get, and the central idea this time is that they are older, and therefore they are dealing with age, and here's a clip of them dealing with age.
Oh, that's a whole lot of help. How many are you working there?
44. I'm on the one-a-day Fruity Pebbles plant. Women our age shouldn't joke about vitamins.
Women who are not our age shouldn't say women our age.
Well, one day, very soon, you will thank me. I am leading the way through the menopause maze with my vitamins, my melatonin sleep patches, my bioidentical estrogen cream, progesterone cream, a touch of testosterone.
She's the hormone whisperer.
I am. I've tricked my body into thinking it's younger. I've tricked my body into thinking it's thinner. Spanx. And I'm telling you, no hot flashes, no mood swings, and my sex drive, it's right back to where it was.
Really? Hadn't heard.
So, I've tricked my body into thinking it's thinner. If any of you were any thinner, you wouldn't exist. And as has been pointed out by everybody, for a film which primarily consists of people sitting around eating food, they don't appear to have eaten at all. So there's been an awful lot written by women about just how grotesque a portrayal of women this is. That they are basically obsessed with their bodies, obsessed with husbands, obsessed with sex, obsessed with nothing other than that. Obsessed with consumerism. There really isn't not much to add to that other than to say,
is that what's wrong with that then?
Because basically its entire portrayal of female liberation is the right to buy expensive shoes. Okay, and I don't believe for 1 minute that these people are depictions of real women. I just don't. I mean, I'm sorry, I don't believe it. If there are, then I'm mistaken. I just don't. I don't believe that real people in the real world are as ghastly as this. However, I'd like to move this on slightly from sex war politics to class war politics, which for me was the overbearing. I mean, I think that its portrayal of women in general is just horrible. I mean, you worried about Killer Inside Me, believe me. But it's the class war issue here, which is this, right? Firstly, you are meant to be engaged with these characters who are stinking wealthy and consumerist beyond your wildest dreams. The main one, the one played by Sarah Jessica Parker, appears to write books, right? Although we never actually see her. Every now and then she kind of sits down and does a little bit of fiddling around. She lives in an apartment with her husband, who, in order to be sort of funding this apartment, is probably an arms dealer. Well, it's never really discussed, where all their money is coming from. And she gets cross with him because at one point he buys her a massive flat screen television, and she's cross that he hasn't bought her a bit of jewellery. And then, because their relationship is a little bit on top of each other, she goes back to her other apartment, which they've just kept on. She has a whole other apartment. Okay, so they have one lavish apartment, massive television, huge amounts of wealth, massive amount of clothes, walk-in wardrobe that you could put a family in. Then she goes off to another apartment that she hasn't bothered to sell because we're all so wealthy. And then she moans and complains about how awful her life is and isn't this difficult and I really have to get away. I have to get away from all this. So point number one. Point number two.
So what was the point?
The point is, first, why do I care about this character? This is a character who has so much money, so much wealth, that actually having two apartments, she's still, oh, God, so hard, so difficult, oh, I'm having problems with my relationship. The defining moment for me is she goes to this hotel, which is $22,000 a night, okay, but she's getting it on the free. And when they arrive, each one of them is given their own personal exotic flunky, who then waits on them hand in hand.
You'd expect that for $22,000 a night, wouldn't you?
And yes, but at no point does anyone say, I'm sorry, this is just ghastly beyond belief, that it's horrible. Fine.
Is there a choice of films?
So what happens is that at one moment, the flunky who she has been given, who points out that actually he can only go and see his wife once every couple of months because the airfare is expensive, right? And you expect this to be a moment when she suddenly realises that the ghastly wealth that she's living with has a consequence, that there are people around who have less money. But no, this is used as a moment so that she can go, oh yes, I have to be away from Mr. Big sometimes as well. Therefore, and so you're going, I can't believe you've just done this. You've gone, you stinkingly wealthy consumerist dripping with gold shoes, blah-de-blah-de-blah. He doesn't have enough money to go and see, and what you've seen in this isn't horrible, staggering inequality of just corpulent, filthy lucre, but, oh yes, we both have the same issue, which is to do with being apart from our loved one. Point number one, okay?
This is the old trot at the barricades, isn't it?
I'm sorry, this was the point at which I started going, then comrades come rally. Sorry, okay? As for the rest of them...
What was that?
That's the Internationale. One of them is a lawyer, right, who is not treated well at work, so quits. At no point does anybody in her marriage say, what are you going to do about the money? No, because that's not an issue, because obviously, which means one of two things. Either the money that she was earning was nothing at all, which is unlikely because she's a lawyer, or the money that she's earning is completely insignificant because they've got money coming out of their ears. They've got so money, who would possibly care? Another one is a woman who is a mother who has a full-time nanny assistant, but who still finds time to go and cry in the food cupboard because she's so oppressed by having to do the childcare, and the child puts jammy hands on her vintage skirt. And we're meant to sympathise. And then there's a moment of self-reflexiveness in which he says, oh, what on earth do people who don't have help do? Nod to the screen. The rest of us going, oh, the serfs. If we were in a Sex and the City movie, we'd be the help. We'd be the serfs. We'd be the person opening the door. So all that stuff going on. Fine. Then there's the race relations issue, which is they go to a foreign country where people dress differently. The main character, the screamy one who's, Samantha, I think her name is, who's all the time going on about her sex life, ends up throwing condoms at these people, saying, I'm a woman, I have sex. This is meant to be the great liberating them. In fact, the main message of the woman is, I'm a woman, I buy shoes, I am a consumerist. But
she could throw her shoes.
The twist of the movie is that it turns out that under the burqas, under the full dress, actually all those women are wearing designer Dior's that the minute they get in the same room as all the sexy people, they go, oh look, we're all just as vacuous and shallow and horrible and consumerist obsessed as the rest of you. So essentially the message of the film is this: feel sympathy for people who are disgustingly wealthy, and so disgustingly wealthy that they not only don't notice having a spare apartment, not only don't notice losing the income from a job, not only don't notice that one of the people that they're employing is so poor that he can only afford to go and see his wife once every 3 months. Not only that, but are also imperialist American pig dogs of the highest order when it comes to cultural imperialism. I mean, honestly, I tell you, it's one of those things you just go, this is a satire, right? This has, and it's not to do the gender politics, as I said, I will leave that to women who have written much more, authoritatively outraged commentaries about this than I have. I would refer you, incidentally, to In The Stranger, this column by Lindy West, I think it is. Many people have tweeted about this. I can't read any of it out because it's scorchingly rude, but it's... but on the class war politics, it is... the most don't say it like that.
Well, you did say I'm not going to rant. You did say I am not going to rant, and that was about 10 minutes ago.
It is consumerist pornography. It is an orgy of dripping, just dripping wealth that made me want to be sick.